Now, unless you've been down a hole for the last month or two, you all know there's an election coming in the UK. So I'm going to go through some of the major promises made by the major parties, and I'm going to give you my sixpennyworth. We'll start off with David Cameron. Now, David Cameron, Conservative Party, he seems to think his is bigger than anyone else's, and they have some main pledges, not all of which will prove to be popular. Although, being a Conservative, he thinks the first one will. Now, I'm not going to go through every single pledge for every single party. I'd be here for several hours. Just the main ones. Now, in the UK, Margaret Thatcher bought this thing called right to buy to social housing tenants in England. And this meant that if you'd lived in a council-owned home for longer than 5 years, you had the right to buy it at a discounted price. And the obvious scheme here is more people are homeowners, more people are likely to be voting Conservative. Now, the results of Margaret Thatcher's home selling spree were basically to transfer lots and lots of these cheaply built council homes into the hands of private landlords, because a lot of the people who bought them, surprise surprise, they couldn't keep up on their mortgage and they got sold at a knockdown price. They were bought at a knockdown price anyway, but they got sold at a knockdown price, and the people who snapped them up were these big wealthy landlords. And estimates of as high as 73% of the homes that were sold at the time made their way into the hands of private landlords and are now being rented out for an exorbitant amount compared to the original rent. So people are looking at this and saying he wants to do it again. And he plans to build 200,000 starter homes over the course of the next Parliament. Well, whoopee-doo, because we've got more than that number of families who will arrive in Britain as immigrants over that time. So his 200,000 starter homes isn't even going to keep up with immigration. And he's going to ensure that people who work 30 hours a week on the minimum wage pay no income tax. Well, that's actually quite good, but it means he can keep the minimum wage down. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, that one. Doubling free childcare allowance for 3 and 4 year olds to 30 hours a week. At the moment there's 15 hours that parents can get free childcare allowance, so that's like 4 hours a day, which means you can afford to have a part-time job and put your child into nursery. Yeah, okay, that's not a bad idea. Increasing the inheritance tax threshold on family homes to 1 million by 2017. No arguments with that. No above inflation rises in rail fares until 2018, I think it is. And yeah, nobody much in this country uses rail. The main people who use rail are people that work in the big cities, and they use it to get into and out of work, and very often the tickets are paid for by their companies. And the main reason most people don't use the rail is that it's so darned expensive. I mean, I worked it out, the last time I was thinking of going somewhere by train, I worked it out that it would actually cost me 5 times as much as going by car. So no, not going to do that. Extra 8 billion a year for the NHS by 2020. I'm kind of assuming that's after the cuts that he's got planned for the NHS have taken effect, because there are cuts planned at the moment by the Conservatives. Opening 500 more free schools. He doesn't say what sort of free schools. An EU referendum by 2017. And he doesn't say what sort of EU referendum. Is it going to be a straight in and out referendum? Is it going to be we want to be just a part of the commercial EU but not a part of some super state? Is it even going to be binding? because the last time this man talked about a referendum, he said it wasn't going to be binding, which meant that even if every man, woman and child in the UK said, no, we don't want to be a part of Europe, they're just going to ignore it. So much for the Conservatives and their big ideas. Then of course we have the rather unfortunate Mr Milliband. Now Mr Milliband, he seems to be grasping for some sort of, well, I won't say what he's grasping for, but he's grasping for something. This isn't going to take very long, because basically his main policies aren't very exciting. He's going to ban some 0 hours contracts, not all of them, and these are the contracts where companies lock you into being employed by them but don't actually have to give you any work to do, and of course you don't get paid if you don't do the work. Very unfair system, that. A freeze on energy bills, in other words you won't have to pay more. Well, the price of oil's just gone down, price of gas has just gone down, so if he freezes them, surely the companies are going to make more on it, because they won't be able to drop the price. Scrapping non-domestic tax status. Well, what that means is that it would actually be pretty impossible to do that without leaving Europe, because what that means is that the European system, where you can claim taxation in whichever country is most beneficial to your company or yourself, you'd no longer be able to do it. But whether Europe would actually stand for that, I don't know. Probably not. Reducing tuition fees at university to £6,000. Raising the minimum wage to more than £8 by October 2019. Let's face it, the way inflation's going, he's going to have to do that. Again, freezing rail fares, but this is just for 1 year, and same comments apply as for the Conservatives. Protecting tax credits for working families so they rise with inflation. Now what tax credits are, you actually get a rebate. If you don't earn very much and you've got a lot of outgoings that are unavoidable, like you've got children, you've got a home that you're paying a mortgage on, whatever, then you get these tax credits that really are kind of like a rebate on your income tax, and he wants to protect them so they rise with inflation, which tells you he's expecting some inflation. So that's quite interesting. Introducing a new national primary childcare service guaranteeing childcare from 8 o'clock in the morning to 1800, which is really the same thing as the Conservatives' doubling of the hours. And so there's nothing much there, really. It's a very lackluster set of promises from this rather desperate and ugly looking guy.
Mr. Speaker, recently a single mother with small children came to see me in Sheffield. She had with her
Mr. Speaker, the House has noticed the Prime Minister's remarkable transformation in the last few weeks from Stalin to Mr. Beam.
The Prime Minister talks about salesmanship. We all know his brilliant salesmanship. This is the man that sold gold at the bottom of the market. That's the problem with the Prime Minister. He's got nothing to sell and he's useless at selling it. And while we're at it, I've got a bit more advice for him. This is the Prime Minister who went on American Idol with more makeup on than Barbara Cartland. This is the Prime Minister who sits in number 10 Downing Street.